kiss for you.
Alright, so I've been sick for about a week, which is why there hasn't been any videos on either channel. And what I tend to do when I'm sick is go on my Switch instead of my computer, just for convenience reasons, and buy a bunch of games that I only play for when I'm sick and then never touch again. So that's what I basically did here. But there was a couple games that I think stood out, and I'm going to talk about one of the three today, which was Mario&Luigi Brothership. Now, I bought this game somewhat at a risk because I saw the reviews. I watched a couple of the reviews that were not very kind to the game. I watched some reviews that were more positive to the game. But overall, I felt like all those reviews didn't really capture what I was looking for in the game experience. And so I basically just, left it on the back burner. I was like, I have other things to play. I'll be fine. But I bought it during this time when I was sick. And because of that, I didn't have any expectations going into this because I had been, a couple 4 months or so since I watched those reviews. This game, to me, really does capture that feeling that I wanted it to. And I think that's really important and awesome because this game is really great. My experience with the Mario&Luigi series is pretty limited. I played Bowser's Inside Story on my DS. I think I'm about halfway through it, and then I haven't touched anything else from that series. For my RPGs, I played Sticker Star on the 3DS, and then I played the Thousand Year Door remake on Switch. I beat that game, which is pretty impressive considering that most of the time I don't beat these kind of games here. And I really enjoyed Thousand Year Door, but there was a lot of issues in that game that I think Brothership does not fall into, and I think that's actually quite impressive, considering a lot of people herald Thousand Year Door as this amazing, remake and an amazing game in general, and they don't with Brothership. But I think personally that a lot of things in Brothership I like considerably more how they're done in this game than how they're done in Thousand Year Door. I think one of the big ones is there's not really in Thousand Year Door a functional progression system when it comes to strength. Your level ups in that game involve increasing health, increasing your mana or your ability to use abilities, or increasing the amount of ability slots you have to be able to basically put more gear into. But there's not really any damage or health increase or speed increase or anything that allows you to change the actual power that you have. And so what ends up happening is your level ups really just feel like tank increases, your ability to take damage, rather than actual strength increases. And that's really kind of an issue in RPG sense, because the start of the game to the end of the game, you're doing basically the same amount of damage, and you're doing the same attacks and the same sort of setup. It doesn't really feel like you're changing all that much from the beginning to end of the game in terms of power. And you can really see that in something like the star powers, which are the end goal. You beat a boss and you get this giant star, supposed to be a really good ability. It uses a bunch of your FP, I believe. And then, but the higher level is supposed to be stronger. So the start, you'll get a basic heal or a ground pound, and then it goes basic heal, and then there's a couple other abilities, and as you get farther along, they're more expensive. The star powers are supposed to be that major progression milestone, but instead, they're basically relegated to two options. It's either a healing, that's a basic healing, or later on you get a better healing, or it's a boost your attack and defense, where you can do a mini game and it boosts your attack and defense by double for 4 turns, I believe. Those are the best options, bar none. None of the others matter at that point. You don't need to do ground slaying damage because your actual boost from the damage you get from that one are just plain out better. And so the star powers don't feel like upgrades. You don't need to use the one where you paint a circle and do damage around the circle, or the other. There's a couple other ones, but they never really felt useful. Not only because they were more expensive than the more cheaper ones, but they weren't as effective. And so when you get a level up system that doesn't involve that progression and a star system that doesn't involve better power or more utility, and you get the whole partner skill thing that also does not increase in power or lower the cost to do stuff, you end up really just getting the partners that feel like ability extensions. I don't remember the names at the point, but the purple cloud one, it has a body slam ability, right? And the body slam ability is great because it does a lot of damage and it's a single target thing, but it's the only one that you need to use for single target because it's the highest damage one for single target. And then the Shell Koopa, his one is a slide across the floor, does damage on the floor to all the enemies. That's a really great target one. It stays a really great target one throughout the entirety of the game, and that's the only one you need to use. And so those kind of issues combine to make a system that really just feels pretty one note and pretty stagnant in terms of what I can actually do and how I can affect things. On top of that, like the backtracking for Thousand Year Door, it was quite annoying. So those are my main issues with Thousand Year Door, and the reason I'm bringing these up is because basically all these things are alleviated in Brothership. So if you're interested in having a comparison between the two, that's the best I can give you, is that all those issues non-existent in Brothership. A little bit of backtracking problems, but beyond that, the combat is greatly improved. The quality of the interactions and animations and sound design and feedback are all greatly improved. It just feels like a much more fluid game. So now let's talk about it. Brothership, to me, is really a casual RPG. And a lot of people might not understand what that means because most of the RPG zeitgeist is like Final Fantasy or like Atlas, Persona, Like a Dragon, Yakuza games, that kind of thing. Casual RPGs are things like the Atelier series, Ni no Kuni, the Mana games, the Super Mario RPG, and that kind of thing. The more hardcore RPGs tend to be focused around hardcore gameplay, intimidating systems, that kind of thing. These games are not that. Brothership falls in the category of a casual RPG that is like laid back and enjoyable and not too in-depth and not too like hardened, right? And that's really important to understand because most RPGs are not that. Most RPGs are that, complicated system, grind your teeth against it, grind it and figure it out. But that is not Brothership. So if you're looking for something like that, you're not going to find it in Brothership. And what Brothership does to combat that is have a lot of really great polish that you tend to see from Nintendo, even though this is not a Nintendo-made game. It's made by Acquire, same people that did Octopath Traveler 1, 2, and Triangle Strategy. But the things in this game that really stand out is the quality of the animations just in general, when you're running, when you're jumping, when you're in combat, when you're doing your little partner animations, the abilities, your skills, battle plugs, all the animations relating to this game. Its characters, its entries, it's just cutscenes in general are a standout. I was surprised that the level of interactability and energy that these cutscenes have is quite surprising for an RPG, because RPGs tend not to do that. One of the ways they cut down and make these games so long is they have pretty stagnant cutscenes. They're going to be person talking to person, maybe a couple head nods. Occasionally you'll get a big cinematic thing at the end of a section there, but most of the time your cutscenes are pretty basic, so you can extend the length. This game is still very long, but it has those cutscene moments and enough of what it's doing. Even just the fact of like when you enter a new island, each time there's a little bit of a different animation. Mario and Luigi will enter in a little bit differently and have that interaction there. That kind of stuff really makes the game pop. The other thing is the sound design. This is mostly in combat, but there's other sound design elements as well. The feedback, the sound design with the feedback, the animations with that, they all make this game feel very dynamic and feel very alive. And it's not something you tend to find with a lot of RPGs that tend to rely on that same kind of sound design, same kind of animation cues and that kind of thing. This game really does feel like every single enemy and every single character has put a lot of attention to detail in terms of how they sound and what they do and what they look like and how they react. And so because of that, that makes exploration really interesting, makes the puzzles really fun, it makes the combat shine. The combat variety in this game, what people may complain is like a relatively limited number of enemies per island, which is like your level. It really doesn't feel like that because combat in this game is so viscerally energetic.
Oh yeah.
It's that combat that's like you jump and it does the animation and it slams down, and you do the hammer and it slams down, and then later on you get battle plugs, which are basically like ability modifiers that you can have. They're like active at all times. There's like a limited charge on them, but they're active. And when you do that, And in this case, you'll have ones that like increase damage if you get like an excellent rating, or there'll be like chain attacks or like side like area of effects, or the extra damage from like an additional attack, or like preventing debuffs and stuff. Some of them change the animation. So the first one you get, as an example here, is one that gives you like a 15% boost to attack and like jump attacks and hammer attacks, and then gives you more potential for dizziness if you get an excellent rating, and that's like dizzying attack. You can equip 2 badges and more, not badges, they're similar to badges in Thousand Year Door, but you can equip those later on. They change your animation. They'll be like, instead of the same twirl, it'll twirl and go really fast and spin and have the like motion lines and stuff, and that happens for both the jumping on both characters as well as the hammer. It's just that attention to detail, that care that was put into showcasing the difference between that is something that's really a standout. And you don't really see that in other Mario RPGs or RPGs in general, and so that's kind of really a highlight. The animations, the cutscene, the sound design, the combat variety, and the attacks, and as I mentioned with that, battle plug system, it's customizable on the fly without having to go into a separate menu after and set it up beforehand. Although you can do that, you can change the battle plugs, your ability modifiers that are equipped. So let's say you start a battle and there's a flying enemy. Well, you can equip one that has anti-flying so that you can do more damage. It's every time you hit a flying enemy with that badge equipped, it does a crit. So that does more damage. And then you can switch it based on, I don't think it's based on per character, but it's each one has an option. So you'll have 2 battle plugs you can choose from, and they can synergize. So the basic synergy you get is the kaboom attack, which spreads effects to other units, and then the dizzying one. So if you get an excellent rating on your hammer or your jump, that can cause dizzy, and that dizzy, because of the other battle plug, the kaboom attack, can spread to the other units on top of doing damage, can also make all of them dizzy. So it's combos like that are called stat explosions that really make the combat customizable. And it's like, okay, are you getting attacked by flying enemies? Equip the anti-flying. By ground spikes, equip the anti-ground. Are you like needing to do more damage at the end of the thing because you're under leveled? You can equip the spike one that after you do damage, it drops a spike ball on them to do extra damage, right? And that can be super effective against flying enemies and stuff. There's ones to prevent dizziness. There's like 35 of these different plugs, and you get them by crafting those, right? And that also kind of ties into the exploration and puzzles, but really that's the core quality that the game has that kind of makes you play it over other games, and also over the kind of issues that the game has, is that combat quality and the animation and cutscene quality and the sound design, that kind of thing. So those are all really good benefits. I would recommend the game just based on those alone, but there are some issues that we do have to address. I have played this game for about 10 hours now, which I know is not a ton of time for like an RPG in general, but I've been doing that in the last like 2.5 days. So what I've noticed is kind of a couple things that I think other reviews have reflected, but they haven't really explained. So when people talk about this game having a padding or pacing problem, what they actually mean is that, so you need to think of this game like Super Mario Galaxy. And I think if you think about like that, you're going to really enjoy this game. Because this game is very similar in that you go to basically these planets or these islands, right? And you can think of them like a Super Mario Galaxy type level. You'll make your way to the next island after you complete one of these islands as like a little objective, right? But the next island takes time. You have to find a current, go to it, discover the island, that kind of thing. So the game encourages you to go back to your previous islands and complete these side objectives that have now opened up. Because once you complete an island, these flowers open up and you can go back and go where the flowers are, the paths, and collect resources and things and do side quests, right? So the flowers open up there. There's 2 issues with this that kind of highlight the pacing problem. One is that this makes the side content that would be side content, relatively speaking, part of the main story. You can avoid it, you don't have to do it, but as me, as someone that kind of goes with the game flow, if the game flow is like, hey, you should do side quests, I'm going to do side quests. So it ultimately becomes, it's not a main quest then side quest, it's main quest with side quests, basically sort of being a requirement. You can avoid them, but unless you want to be doing nothing, you probably want to be doing a side quest. So the side quests aren't extra, it's kind of expected. The second issue, and a big reason why people may say this game is, for toddlers or for babies or for children or not that interesting, is that a lot of the side content is quite simple. The pathways that the flowers open up are often for either collectible luminades, which are used to upgrade and craft, used to craft battle plugs, or they can be for things like lucky blocks, which have items or coins, the currency in them. The side quests, while they are rewarding, are pretty few and far between. There's not a ton of those, and they're also very simple, including a lot of time just finding an item or talking to a person. It's a quite mindless side questing experience, which I would say would be fine if it was actually extra. But because, as we said, it's a requirement to not actually be doing nothing during that downtime, the entire loop of that side quest and kind of that waiting for the next objective did need to be expanded upon. So I think if there's one thing you can say about the game and the pacing, it's that you'll get to a point where it's like, hey, we need to get to the next island. You should be doing side quests. You do the side quests, and they're not that engaging. They're not that interesting. They're pretty simple, right? Pacing is slow because that side content is required, and the actual engagement of that experience is low and simple. It can absolutely feel like padding, so I would just suggest that you take your time with this game, that you prevent it from feeling like padding. And I think if you do that, you'll have a much better time going through that. You can also importantly speed up the ship going to your map, which takes considerably less time. So if you actually don't want to do the side quest, you can just speed it up and go through it if you want to, but the game does, generally speaking, encourage you to do side content. So also, side content's good for leveling, so if you feel like you want to grind more, and there's a part in the game that kind of sort of forces you, it's not really forcing. Again, what you kind of have to realize is that this is a casual RPG. You're not going to get like hard roadblocked and need to grind for hours in order to get higher levels. You're not going to need to like find a special item that gives you an advantage over this boss that no one else does. It's not like that, so you don't really need to be grinding extra content in order to be able to level up. Most of the time, whatever level you're on is perfectly fine. So that's also something to keep in mind. The second biggest con of the game is ultimately not a problem for me, but a lot of people did have an issue with that, and that is the Mario and Luigi aspect. As I mentioned, the only game I've played in this series is Inside Story, Bowser's Inside Story, which a lot of people think is the best one, and while I do think, from what I remember, Bowser's Inside Story is probably a better Mario and Luigi game, I really enjoy what Brothership is able to do with its more exploration and puzzle aspects. And I think that's really important. This game, because it's so similar to that in its levels, being galaxy planets, in its ship-shaped island, being that floating, moving hub with shops, characters, and things to find like you would in Mario Galaxy, you should have a cannon to other areas. There's multiple challenges on those islands that go back after the fact to gain more levels and gain more stuff. It's very similar to that game. So to me, I was expecting Mario Galaxy with Mario and Luigi combat, and I got that. A lot of people aren't expecting that. They're expecting Luigi to be able to do more and interact more and you be able to control him and all that. I want to make something clear. You do not control Luigi in this game in the sense that you might expect. He has Luigi logic, which is basically an autopilot thing where if you're near some boxes that you can break, you can press L and he'll break them. If you're near a Luigi pallet or like a plate, you can go on them and help complete the puzzle. There's a lot of things that are basically automatic, right? You can tell Luigi, hey, hammer the thing. He can step on pressure plate switches, that kind of stuff. He can get up stuff that you might not be able to, right? He is a helper. He is not something you can, generally speaking, control. You don't have like free reign over him or anything. And so you're not going to be able to really do much there. He's not going to be able to be attacked by enemies, right? If enemies attack Luigi, he kind of just goes through it. And so that's really important, that this is not a game that is similar to other Mario and Luigi games where Luigi is a fully playable character, if you will. For me, that's perfectly fine. And, not really an issue because, as I said, I'm not really someone that cares a lot about that stuff, right? But it can be a deal breaker for some. But, generally speaking, coming from Mario RPGs like Thousand Year Door, it's not really an issue. Most of the RPGs don't tend to have multiple protagonists, so I'm not really missing anything when I'm playing it. And even games like Xenoblade that allow you to switch party members for the main character, I rarely end up doing it just because of like that consistency. Obviously, if you're expecting something else because it's a Mario and Luigi game, that is not that. But I would say overall, other than those two cons, which is pacing and the expectations of a Mario and Luigi game, this game really is very easy to play, very nice to play, and it has a lot of things going for it that I think are really going to surprise you once you get past those couple opening kind of like slower hours. All RPGs tend to have slower hours, but I think really the game really starts to open up once you get those battle plugs, once your ability to customize the combat more, once you're able to kind of add and fix what you're able to do. I think the game really starts to shine, and I would really recommend it based on that alone. A couple other things, their performance isn't great. Obviously, that could be fixed over time. Fundamental game issues, as I said, pacing and Mario and Luigi part of it. But there's other things relating to kind of like the performance not being the best. There's some frame hitching and frame time issues in this game. There's some issues relating to kind of responsiveness sometimes. I see the controls occasionally not always working out as you think they should. There's some timing there that I think could be improved. But overall, I really kind of recommend the game. And I think if you come from something like Thousand Year Door and you like Thousand Year Door, I think you will like this game. If you like Mario Galaxy, you're going to like this game. I think if you like Mario and Luigi, you're also going to like this game. Someone who's not going to like this game is someone that's expecting it to be like other Mario and Luigi games, or someone that's expecting a more deep RPG experience, because it just isn't that. But I would really suggest that you keep an open mind with this game, or just go in without any expectations like I did, and I think you'll come away very happy. So hopefully I was able to provide info into that. Hopefully my review here, not really a review, but the most review that I was able to do was helpful. I hope I was able to compare it to Thousand Year Door enough and kind of give you that pros and cons list there. And yeah, hopefully I'll be back to making more videos shortly. Thank you everyone for watching. Subscribe, like, do all that stuff, and I'll see everyone in the next video.